Welcome back to Virtual Reality Game Dev Ed. This is the third tutorial video for our friend Sky using the MakeHuman Stable Release. I'm sorry to everyone who noticed I got cut off on the last video. I didn't see I was that close to running out of time. But I did manage to get through all of the facial editing features, so I can actually slow down a little bit now for everyone. So I'm actually just going to jump right back into it, right where I left off, but slow down a little bit. So, okay, let's get into Measure. Pull our model down a little bit where we can see him about where we want him to be. Okay. Now, this changes the chest distance, the top of the chest a little bit. I actually do want to pull mine out just a little bit, make it a little bit more masculine of a body. Okay, I also do want to pull out, not this one, this pulls it out from the wrong angle, this pulling out straight from the bust. I actually want to pull mine out from the under bust a little bit. For those in Europe, you can actually see metric statistics for it all works in centimeters, so it's all on metric, so you can use that. But say you don't understand the metric system and you'd rather use something different, you can actually come over here and change it to the imperial system if you're English or American and only understand that imperial system. Okay? But let's go back into our modeling and stick to where we were. Go back into Measure. Okay. This gives you general statistic sizes. So I want to pull out my underbust just a little bit. Just a little, not a lot. Okay, that looks about right. Bit more masculine there. You can actually pull out your waist a little bit. Now these are some more interesting functions. You can actually extend the height or shortness. You can extend the height of your body straight from between the nape to the waist, or waist to hip. And then you can also change your shoulder distance. I do want to pull my shoulders out just a slight bit. Okay. Now that's some really cool stuff. Now, since I already glanced at background, the last thing I should mention real quick that I didn't touch on here, I mentioned the difference between the global camera and the face camera. You can undo and reset, undo and redo, even reset, all of those I showed. However, we get here. This shows you the actual wireframe version of this model. This is one reason that these models are so incredibly realistic, and you need such a good computer like this to work with them in Blender. Look at that model. If you have any idea about graphic design, which if you're following our tutorial series over in Blender, you will see we will actually work a lot with the wireframe of this. We'll use the wireframe to put hair on his scalp and whatnot. This is really incredibly realistic work here. This is something that is very impressive by any means. For instance, let's go ahead and get into around the nipples. Those nipples are actually made into this model. Same thing with the belly button. That belly button literally goes into the model. How awesome is that? So that's some really cool stuff. Another thing we can do, I'm not sure if it works in this version, that's something I'll actually show off for sure in the other version of Blender, or the other version of MakeHuman, the nightly version. You can smooth it. Yes, it works wonderful. And look at that, now we have a twice as realistic model. And that is what we want to be using right there. For my program, since we have this good computer, I'm creating virtual reality here. We want the most realistic model we can possibly have. If you look at the difference, you don't see much difference in this model, but it is definitely a smoother, more realistic human model now. Okay, in the nightly version you'll see a big difference. They actually, for the people that don't have the computer built for graphics design like mine, you actually want to use the normal model without the smoothing function, because it takes less time to render and less time to work with in Blender and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and smooth out my model here. I've got the computer to work with it now, so it's all moving around very well. And that definitely makes me a lot nicer. Okay. Now, the first thing we have to do, once you have your model, you want to save it. You won't notice that you clicked in here at all. It's already selected. Go ahead and start deleting it. Again, this is an alpha version program, so a lot of things like that haven't quite been worked out how I would expect. I would hope that eventually that gets highlighted when I click on it, so I know I'm actually there, but you can see the little cursor here anyway, so you know that's where you're typing. I'm going to go ahead and name this, I don't have any other models saved on this computer, so I'm going to go ahead and save this man1 clean. Clean stands for my genitalia. Man stands for my gender. The number stands for which version. If it was a completely realistic model, I would name it man1 male. So if you see files like that in any other tutorials, anything that you see male or female after the man or woman and then the number, you know those are my realistic models. Okay. Once you have your name picked out, go ahead and save it. Then, now what do we do to export it? Well, let's go ahead and first glance at the load menu. Now we see our save model right there. We can actually double click on it and it will load that model right up for us. Exactly how we had him set. Oop, I just changed that on accident. So let me it's changing presets on me, sorry, YouTube. Go ahead and open him back up. Okay. Actually, exports is something I will get into in the next one. Well, I can glance at it. What you want to do here for Blender, MakeHuman actually made a specific file extension for the Blender Exchange. He made a brand new file type called MHX. You can use wavefront. The problem with wavefront objects is it will not be rigged and whatnot. You can use MD5 and it will be rigged. You can DAE. This will be rigged as well, but it depends. This will work with a lot of different 3D rendering software. I think maybe 3D Max, but this one is specifically designed for Blender, so that's what we use. So go ahead and export that. It takes a second. It takes a second longer to export than anything else. What it has to do, this is the first time I've ever exported anything, so what it is actually doing right now is creating a new folder for me. It actually creates a new folder in your Documents folder called MakeHuman. You open up that MakeHuman folder and you will see this Exports folder. You open up that Exports folder and you will see two different versions of that Man1 if you're using the stable version of MakeHuman. Now this is for Blender 2.4. This is closer to the Blender 2.5, and that's why it's 2.5 and 2.4. This is the one we'll be using for that. So now that that's out there, okay. So there's the files. I already went over ethnics for everybody. Now this is experiments. First of all, we see some interesting things here. We can actually create hair and make some hair, but this still doesn't work. Even in the nightly version, this is just experiments. These are things he's trying to do, trying to get to, and posing as well. You can pose your character here, but these are just experimental functions. They're really not going to work. They're not going to do anything right. You can glance at him and see what he's working on and planning. Here in posing, you can actually play the bone structure and let him walk. You can try to show your human on it, but again, experimental functions. It's not quite working right in this version. You look at your library. Now this was what we saw at the beginning. If you want to jump and put some hair and render, this is where the rendering function comes in. You can actually jump down here, pick a different texture for your character. Sadly, this isn't quite set up right in this version of MakeHuman, but you can put one of these hairstyles on your character. However, this is just for rendering it. It doesn't actually let's go ahead and render it. See what happens. The rendering function doesn't really work on this version. Okay. If you notice the hair looks like this, that's described in Blender. This is particle hair. It looks right when it's rendered. Okay. Last thing I want to go over, you see some different shaders here. Leave all of these alone. You really want no shader. You want it to update in real time. You can change the amount it rotates and whatnot. You can actually hold shift and rotate him even faster there, and you can change those amounts. You can switch to imperial or metric settings. Right here you can report bugs, jump to the manual, all of these wonderful things here. And then the last one, of course, you hit this exit button and guess what it does? Yep, you guessed it. Exits the program. that's it for that tutorial. I will come back with MakeHuman Nightly. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all soon.